Mike Maliani, Deke Entertainment, Chief Creative Officer, and I'm here with Andy Hayward, CEO, and the model for Inspector Gadget.
In 1981, I had left Hanna-Barbera, which shared a studio in Taiwan with a small little company in Paris named Deke Audiovisual. And Deke Audiovisual was doing animated commercials and industrial films. They desired, though, to get into the entertainment business. So they proposed me to leave Hanna-Barbera, go to Paris, live with them, and develop the company into an entertainment venture over there. I got there and they said, let's come up with something that'll work in the United States. Of course, I had no idea what would work in the United States. So having just left Hanna-Barbera, I had been working on a show there called Blue Falcon, who was a superhero, and Dynamite. And he was kind of a superhero who did everything wrong. His voice was played by Gary Owens, and nothing he did came out right, except he did have a dog that was pretty smart. And I thought, there's something there. And of course, we looked at Get Smart, and we looked at the $6 Million Man, and we put them all together with a little inspiration, and we came up with something called Inspector Gadget. And the idea would be to take a police inspector and have him be a bionic character. And everything he did was wrong. He never had any idea that he was doing everything wrong, of course. And all of the crimes were solved by his dog and his niece. Because somebody said, you got to put a girl in there or you're only going to have a show appealing to boys, and that won't work. So that's how Penny came about. And the dog had to be called Brain because he was smart and Inspector Gadget wasn't. Gadget started out with a mustache, but after the first episode, we got a letter from MGM. And they threatened us that it was too close to Inspector Clouseau.
Oh, that's
and
right.
that's why we had to take the mustache off.
You're right. You're right.
So immediately we took the mustache off to create some point of differentiation.
Right. The original design was done in Paris, and it was kind of based real loosely on Andy and one of the directors at the time. So when we got it here and we were about to start production, we started breaking the model down. What are we going to need? His gadgets, what gadgets is he going to have? What can he do? Because if he was too complete, he wouldn't be bumbling enough. So we had to isolate and start pulling him apart and seeing where and how things would work. The original design, we had his copter blades and his hands would come out of his back. And we had the front trench coat would open, and it looked kind of weird having these hands come out of his stomach, on his shins. He had these patches that would open up, and it was getting all over the place, and the writers were getting confused, and we couldn't really lock into anything. So we put some drawings together, and we went back to Andy and said, what do you think of this? And we simplified them, where his legs would stretch. He could balloon up so that he could bounce in case he dropped down from a building or something. The helicopter blades we put on the top of his head. And then we took the hands, and the hands were real interesting because we weren't sure really what he would do with those. And we started breaking it down. We said, okay, what does he need? Well, he's an inspector. He's going to try to get into everything. So we said, let's give him a flashlight. So that was one. One finger was the cell phone, the antenna. The other was a skeleton key, a screwdriver, a laser, and then on his other hand, we used a water pistol because, the networks and wherever it was going to go, we didn't want to get, we didn't want any guns or anything. Gadget went through about 350 drawings before we got the final one. I remember that.
That many, really?
Yeah, there was a ton. Because we had all the, the breakdown on all his parts and, the transformations.
In those days, everything was done with paint and Pantone colors, and they were hand-painted.
We had paintbrushes.
We had paintbrushes. We don't have paintbrushes anymore.
We have a whole studio with not one paintbrush. And you always think you're going to see claw. Always.
But you don't.
But you don't. When we started talking around, we said, you know what? All the stories, you have to think, and we have to sell in every single episode. This was a must to all the writers, that you think this is the episode where we're going to reveal who Claw is. And if you watch them all the way through, right up to that second, you really think that this episode you're going to see him. And then it's always, attached to a bomb or attached to something else. Did you come up, was it you or Jean, with the Wowsers?
Well, Wowsers was
'Cause
from
Wowzers-
Gary Owens. Gary Owens. You know, when we were trying to cast the voice of Inspector Gadget, the first voice we tried was Gary Owens, who actually played Blue Falcon. And he was, you know, very celebrated from Laugh-In and a lot of other voices at the time. And he came in and he did an audition for us, and we gave him models of the character and, you know, tried to get him involved in it. And he looked at the character at one point, he said, "Wowzers, that's really, wowzers, that should be a line," he says.
Wowsers!
Gary Owens didn't work out. So then we went to a guy named Jesse White, who I don't know if anybody would recall, but he was a character actor who played the Maytag washing machine man in all those Maytag commercials. He did the first episode and he did a pilot for us, and he was very funny, but he didn't quite fit right. And then we thought, you know, maybe we should go to Don Adams. He did Get Smart, and it was a similar type of character, and it was all that Would You Believe and type stuff, and he was very, very funny. So we went to Don, and Don said, yeah, it's interesting. How much? He got into the part, and he did very well. And I remember running into Don. One day I was outside of Chazen's restaurant, and I heard this voice behind me waiting for his car. And it was Inspector Gadget. It was eerie. And I looked behind, and it was Don. And he said, you know, Andy, all the shows I've done and all the career I've had doing this and that and the Get Smart and the various movies and whatnot, everybody comes up to me about Inspector Gadget.
Because the stories work.
The
It's the
stories
stories.
worked. They were just, you know, very, very well-written stories. We took a lot of
They're
time on
evergreens,
them. And, you know, it had a certain charm to it in the character, and it was a story pattern that's really been proven time and time again. And the character was an endearing character.
Inspector Gadget.